advantage of daily doorbuster deals and register to win a prize package from Milwaukee, valued at $499. Don't miss the spring tool sale this Friday and Saturday, only at Acme Tools. Do your best work.
Homeowners, do you have any digging projects planned for this summer? Click or call Gopher State 1. Call at 811 first. It's simple, safe, and free.
You
don't
got
know
my
where
email,
utility
Brett?
lines are, so why?
Yes, sir.
Awesome.
Safety first, dig second. Click or call 811.
Stay in Saul Studios. This is FM 100.3 KFXN Minneapolis, St. Paul, The Fan. From the ponds to the pros, it's time for Beyond the Pond on The Fan. Here are your hosts, Pat Micheletti and Kevin Falness.
Let's talk hockey!
Hot. Well, here we are, an opportunity to take a stranglehold on the series. The Minnesota Wild lead the best-of-7 series, 2-1. Huge game coming up today from Xcel Energy Center as the Wild host the Vegas Golden Knights. I'm Kevin Falness, along with Pat Micheletti from the Bob Kurtz Radio Center in St. Paul. Welcome to St. Paul once again there, Patrick. Saw you leading into Game 3, and now we get a chance to spend the day together today.
Another long day, Kevin, leading up to the Wild pregame show, and then fan line after.
Wild fan line, how about that?
Is that our debut?
I don't even want to say it because I think it is. I don't know that we've done one all season long.
No, we haven't. And so that'll be fun. Hopefully we'll have lots of good things to talk about.
Yeah,
I
hope you're absolutely right.
But we'll see, right? It's 2-1. They've done what they needed to do, and that was at least get one on the road, and then you take care of your home ice, and they've held serve thus far.
Plenty to talk about when it comes to this series, and of course we'll do that over the course of the next 2 hours and beyond. Hopefully you enjoy the ride. We've got some cool guests coming your way too. We're going to go behind enemy lines once again. Earlier in the series, we checked in with Darren Millard from Vegas TV. Now we're going to go to one of their beat writers, Jesse Granger from The Athletic and theathletic.com will join us about the bottom of the hour. Next hour, we'll hear from both Kevin Gorg and EJ Raddick. Gorgie needs no introduction. EJ Raddick, they're from the NHL Network. So a great opportunity to pick the brains of some of these guys as we get you set for game number 4. And by the way, this kind of fell through the cracks, Patrick. I got a pair of tickets for it today. It's last second, but I think they're going to be highly valuable. You get a chance to get down to Xcel Energy Center. It was so much fun for game number 3. And go ahead.
No. I was just going to, jump on that. It was electric.
It was
here,
awesome.
and which is great. And the players, the team gave the fans something to cheer about.
Without a doubt. Both parties did their part. The Wild gave them something to cheer about, and the Wild certainly held up their end of the bargain, and it was a blast. I think the announced crowd was somewhere in the neighborhood of 19,000, and you have an opportunity to be part of the fun today. The first game that we're going to start before midnight, so that'll be kind of nice as well. Pre-game at 2:45, puck drops just after 3. I think 3:10 is the official puck drop. So you want to get down here. They got a cool laser light show. They're doing everything right inside Xcel Energy Center. So again, I got a last minute pair of tickets. If you can get down here today, and I'm not putting you in a bind, hopefully you can put these to use, and we're going to use that talkback feature once again. I need an alternative to Howlin' with the Homies. I don't know what it is for you, myself, Brett Blakemore.
We're good. We're good.
You're fine with Beyond the Pond, Pat, Kevin, Brett.
You got it. Yep. We Fear the Fork.
Fear the Fork might be an alternative as well. If you're creative out there and you want to get on that talkback, give us an alternative to Howlin' with the Homies. What are we doing to get ready for this Minnesota Wild, hopefully lengthy run, which continues today in St. Paul? And then also, of course, give us your thoughts on Game 3, the series through 3 games, what you expect today in St. Paul for game number 4 in a huge matchup. I mean, this team has lost 8 straight series. They haven't advanced since 2015, and now they have an opportunity to grab their first 3-1 series lead in franchise history. And it's right there for the taking, Pat. They've played so well here through the first 3 games.
Yeah, and I think their demeanor has been that. They're taking it, they play the game and they forget about it and they move on to the next game, which they're not getting too far ahead of themselves. And quite frankly, none of us should. Not because it's a Minnesota team. It's just because in these 7-game series, they just, you got to get through them, and you got to take them one game at a time, because every game, there's tweaks and, this and that going on with the teams. And so you just gotta have that right mentality going into today's game.
Again, what are your thoughts? Use that free iHeart Radio app and click the talkback feature. You can get involved that way. You can certainly call. We've got phone lines that are available to you, and we will certainly during the extended pregame and during Wild Fan Line. We don't open the phone lines all that often, but we will do it today, 800-320-5326. And I enjoy putting Brett to work any chance we get the opportunity. Anyhow,
Thanks, Kev.
Back there in the St. Louis Park studios, that's what I would say through the first 3 games of this series. Coming in, we heard about the high-end talent for the Vegas Golden Knights, their depth, they've got great goaltending, and their blue line is immaculate. The Wild have checked every box over the Vegas Golden Knights through 3 games, and that includes game 1 that's even lost.
Well, for me watching the games, listen, and we might see the same type of game today. They're going to have territorial advantage. They had it in all 3 games thus far. They're a heavy team. Once they get on their forecheck, the puck is going to be in the Wild zone an awful lot. And it was in game 3. And so, but the key to it is defending. And Minnesota kept them to the outside pretty much. They didn't get to the middle of the ice. Gustafsson had to make the saves, when called upon. So, get used to how these games are shaping up, from game 1 to game 3 and probably into game 4. But what Minnesota's been really, really good at, I'll use the word opportunistic, and they've capitalized on the opportunities that they've created, and 2, that they caused via turnover. And that's something that we haven't seen a lot of in the second half of the year, is the ability to strike when they have the opportunity. And they've been doing that for the first 3 games.
I don't know why I'm drawing fire here from the text line, 64686. No respect for Falness. If the Wolves had a weekly show, they would extend it until the playoffs were over instead of going to golf talk. Do you think this is my decision? It is the season finale for Beyond the Pond, but I have been told they're going to find a spot for us once, if the playoffs continue for the Minnesota Wild. Mr. Abbott, Mr. Swedberg, the rest of the KFA and brass are going to find a spot for us. It just won't be 10 to noon.
No,
because the golf show takes over.
Yeah, and it's been that way forever. And so, Chad and everybody back at headquarters, they always find a spot for us. And if this team keeps going, we'll keep going.
It's soft. This is the last Beyond the Pond of the season. It's
yeah.
not the last one. I promise. We'll be on these airwaves quite a bit
Yep.
as this playoff run continues. Now we just need the Wild to
keep winning.
to do their part.
Just
right.
keep winning.
Again, it's 64686. Use that Wild that free iHeartRadio app. Use some talkbacks. You can also call in at 800-320-5326. You can text us 64686. I'm seeing some options here. Wild and Out fan line, don't like that one. Wailing with the Wild, not a fan of that one either. So keep them coming. There's some opportunity here for y'all to get creative. Philip Gustafson, to me, Pat, has been, I don't know, I would call him the MVP of this series because Kaprizov and Boldy have been pretty darn good. But, man, Gustafson might be playing the best hockey of his career.
Well, I really, really enjoyed and I'm sure he'd love to have the Pietrangelo goal back. But that's going to happen, right? But you know what? He stayed focused, stayed in it, forgot about it right after the goal was scored. And that's something that you have to do as a goaltender is, let ones that you think you should have got, you got to let it go. And he did. And he was terrific, especially but it was a 2-goal game and they get the 2 power plays back to back and he just snuffed them and that's what you need. I mean, if you're going to win a Stanley Cup, we see it every year, Kevin. You need great goaltending and he's playing great.
And meanwhile, he's getting the offensive support. I talk about the depth shining through for this team, top to bottom. But I mean, Kaprizov and Boldy are just playing on another level. You kind of expect it from Kirill Kaprizov. You didn't know what to expect from Matt Boldy, even though you've seen it in the regular season. You've never seen it in the postseason. Boy, he's shining through right now, Patrick.
Yeah, and I think he gets way too much grief, if that's the word I want to use, through his play throughout the season, which he only led the team in scoring. Only had what did he end up with? 30,
almost 30. I don't think he got 30. To 30.
Okay, whatever. But no, and listen, he's a kid. He's still young.
He is. And you forget about that.
And we get overblown because he gets the majority of the ice time. He's got the new contract, but he's still maturing and he's still finding his way. And it looks like, he's starting to understand it and get it. And, he's playing terrific hockey for him.
Whipping ass with the Wild from Saul. Call of the Wild from the 952 area code, from the 651 area code. This doesn't seem very nice. Hollering with the hobos. Well, I like the alliteration. I don't know that I like being referred to as a hobo. Let's squeeze in a call. Let's get those phone lines going.
Let's get it.
He's gone. Carl in Bloomington, we'll get back to you at another time. Why don't we squeeze in that first break, and then we can get to Brett Blakemore's breakaways, get the show going. We've shortchanged you so many times here, Brett, that this will be an opportunity
Brett.
To get to
season finale, so no better time
Not
than
the
now.
season finale. We got plenty of fans.
Fear the fork.
Beyond the Pond coming your way as this playoff run continues. Now it's up to the Wild to do their part. Brett Blakemore is going to do his part after a break. It's breakaways next on The Fan.
This is Kevin Gorg, and I'll give you hundreds of reasons to listen to Micheletti.
Are you ready, Kevin?
I'm bracing myself.
Me
You
too.
never know what's going to happen. So
I put the seatbelt on.
what do you got there, Brett? Good
I've
morning.
been good this last couple of times. I haven't
Have
said
ya?
anything ridiculous.
Who's told
Yes,
you
I
that?
have.
Who's told you that?
Falness.
Oh.
Not you. You wouldn't compliment me. Here we go.
Oh, boy.
Look, this question came up the other day on Tana Fitzgerald. I'm not saying it's do or die. I'm not doing any grandiose.
Well, then
but
why are you setting yourself up?
because I want to preface it so that you don't jump down my throat like you just did.
Okay.
Is this today, the most important game so far of Bill Guerin's tenure?
Oh, I thought you were going to say of Wild history of
Nope.
Bill Guerin's tenure. I don't think maybe that's too much over the top. I think getting into the playoffs was the first big hurdle, and they cleared that by winning 4 of 5 down the stretch, and including scoring at the buzzer to get them into the playoffs in game number 82 against the Anaheim Ducks. So now that you get past that, maybe, yeah, I guess, probably. What do you think, Patrick?
Can I just one word it?
Sure.
No.
What was the most important game in Bill Guerin's?
I don't think he's had one.
They're all
yet.
equally important, Kevin. We
Okay.
have to treat it one game at a time,
Okay,
right? Is that where you were going?
I think that's a shot at me.
I think so too.
Yeah.
But it is an important one. I mean, this will be just
really
huge
important.
for them to get a 3-1 series lead, really grab this series by the throat. Boy, that would be huge going to Vegas for game number 5 this week. Man, an opportunity is there, and they've played so well. They deserve it if they can continue. What worries me, though, is when the other shoe drops on Eichel, on Stone, on Barbashev. They've been invisible in this series because
0
of
points.
what the Wild have done. Credit the Wild.
And you got to keep doing it. And, and that's
If
why
you
it's
take
just,
your thumb off of
and
the top of
they
them,
understand that too. They know. And listen, I mean, Stone, Eichel, they're world-class players. And so, you got to stay on. You got to just stay on it. And, hopefully they will today.
Yeah, they've been in this situation before the last 2
Can't
playoff
worry
series,
about
I
it. Different
believe.
teams, different games, different everything.
I know, but we're fans and we can talk about it.
Yes, you can.
It is true.
Yes, you can.
So this is an important game because
you
those
have
series,
that right to do that.
those series, they didn't, and then it didn't go well for the Wild. So this is a big game for them.
What
I
do
actually have a really
What do you
fun
think,
prediction. I think
Marcus?
you'll love.
Let's see.
I thought Foligno was great the other night.
ooh.
A couple of penalties stunk, but he made up for it with a huge.
why
Now,
did-
play at
first
the
of
end
all,
the game.
Wait,
it's
wait,
not only
wait.
the other night; it's been all season. You need to at some point address the fact that you haven't given Foligno
I
credit
don't-
for what he does
yeah,
for this team. Not
Brett-
you,
Brett,
Brett.
When
Yeah,
he
Brett-
does things
Brett-
I like, I compliment him. He's
Brett,
good.
what?
Yeah, he's good.
I don't get what you want
Well,
out of it. What
I
do you
wasn't even
want out of him?
I literally just
Tell
said.
me what type of player that he's
I don't know
supposed to be.
How much more I can
And
compliment him?
What doesn't matter about the compliment. What type of player is in your head should Marcus Foligno be?
On the
I don't
third line,
understand it.
He's a really good third liner. And I like him on the third line.
Okay.
I don't know what else you want.
I
Can
want
we
to know
move
what
on
type
to my next
Yeah,
breakaway,
yeah.
please?
Go ahead.
Before
Not
you do
Foligno
that,
related.
here,
My blood gets.
before you do that,
Well, you're
crossbar.
doing it to yourself. I didn't even bring him up.
Before you move on, a couple more suggestions in lieu of howling with the homies as the Timberwolves go on their playoff run. Some of the other ones that have come in at 64686 crossbar conversations, untamed after the game, winning with the Wild, Falness fan line. I don't know that you like that
Fan
one,
line.
Patrick.
Sure.
All right, go ahead, Brett. Sorry.
Hashtag more me for sure.
Me PD.
Here's a fun prediction that I don't know. Again, I'm a fan. I'm a rube. I'm not a players do it one game at a time. We get that. I'm a rube, so I'm going to look ahead. If the Wild win this game tonight, I'm predicting they go to the Western Conference Finals.
Oh boy.
I'll say I'm not scared of the Kings.
You stole
I'm not
that
scared
from
of the
me,
Oilers.
didn't you? You stole that from me.
No, you
Patrick
don't.
did say that going into the series. If they win, if they can somehow get past the Vegas Golden Knights, they'll go to the Western. He wasn't worried about who they're going to face in the Pacific beyond this.
No.
I will give you credit for that, Patrick. You
Thank
did
you.
say that.
Well,
But
then I agree with Patrick, and I'm not afraid to
Whoa.
admit that.
I will say I think the LA Kings are going to be a handful. I know that it's been a weird series, and Darcy Kemper is. I've never been a huge fan of his. As a person, I am. As a player, yeah, I didn't like him when he was with the Colorado Avalanche. I remember what he was like here in Minnesota. Bruce Boudreau called him Kumps. But that said, the Kings over the Oilers, I think at some point is going to bear fruit. I just don't know that it's going to be so easy for the Wild to get past them. That's a good team.
You got to look at it too from this perspective: is how did the other team that you're facing come out of their series, even though they won, right?
Yeah.
Are they banged up? Are they, are there some leaks there? I mean, hey, the Kings gave up 7 last night. 7. That's been a high-scoring series, which we kind of expected. Although I thought LA, I didn't see them giving up 7 goals in a game in the playoffs. Because they defend well and they're really, they're a pretty well-structured team. So it all depends on again who you're facing and how they come out of the series.
Agreed. Another thing that we mentioned on Tenna Fitzgerald that I want to get your thoughts on, we did plus minus, and Tenna brought up that the crowd was great at the X. They're booming, and I'm looking forward to that atmosphere being there this time later today. But on the power play, this is an argument as old as time. But especially every time Zeev got the puck on the point, there were very loud shoots going on. Now, I don't like yelling shoot on the power play at all, period. I don't like it. They can see the shooting lanes. You can't, most likely.
Do you do it?
I don't, because I don't like it.
Do you get mad at people that do it around you when you're in the stands?
I won't say anything, but yes, I'll get annoyed in my own little bubble and just maybe send out a mean tweet. But that's all I can do because I'm passive aggressive and I'm from the Midwest.
Yeah.
But with Zeev specifically, A, do you what's your whole stance on the yelling shoot on the power play? But B, do you think it matters to Zeev at all? Because Ryan Hartman said in a piece in The Athletic that he hears the fans yelling shoot with like 20 seconds left in the period, and he hears it. That's why he looked up at the clock that tying or that fourth goal to see how much time was left because he couldn't trust the fans. That's paraphrasing what he said.
And then he fired it at the belt buckle of Kirill Kaprizov, goes in off of him, and Wild go on to a 4-1 advantage there at the end of period number 2. I don't know that it has much bearing on the game, to be honest. If you tell me that Zeev Buium is hearing the fans yell shoot and that makes him want to fire, I think you don't hear that stuff, do you, Pat, when you're on the ice?
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
So it doesn't bother me. I know it becomes a little repetitive because you hear it every time the puck's on their stick and they don't fire it.
I think it bothers the writers and the people like that.
I've heard Tom say that you don't even hear the fans for the most part when you're in that bubble and you're in the game. You're so intense and
you're not there. Oh boy, geez, they told me to shoot. I better no.
But it did work for Ryan Hartman. Like you said, it got his attention. Apparently, he looked up at the clock, whether he heard the shoot
I think
or not.
Ryan knew how much time was on the clock. And anyway.
Here's the direct quote from Hartman.
Yeah,
quote,
I know. I
the
saw
fans
it.
were yelling shoot as usual. So that means he has heard it before. You could never really trust how much time is left because it seems like they're yelling with 20 seconds left in the period. I thought I'd give it a check. So it's not saying that, when I played club hockey in college, I couldn't hear my mom yelling at the ice the whole time.
Were you any good?
I did my bit, and that was it.
Which way do you shoot?
Right.
You get that going for you.
Let me say this, Patrick. Beyond the fans yelling shoot, there's one thing I will say about Zeev Buium is I've watched him through 3 games. It feels like, obviously this is his first run at the National Hockey League, let alone being in the playoffs, and then manning a power play to boot. It feels like he's getting more and more comfortable as these 3 games go along. But if there's one thing I would like to see is that shot of his. He feels like he's a little hesitant to let it fly when he has the opportunity.
Every stride he takes, every pass he makes.
Wow, this is like a police song.
He is going to
We'll be watching him.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, really,
Sting?
right? I mean, he gets scrutinized for jumping. How's he getting off the board?
Yeah.
How's he getting off the bench? How's he going to the bench? Let the kid play.
Yep.
He's been just fine.
Well said. Do you want one more?
Sure, one more.
I'm going to take a small victory lap because I said weeks ago.
Shocking.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I've got to defend myself in this segment. I said a top team like the Stars loses 2 of their top players and they're going to be just fine. They have lost Robertson. They've lost Heisen. They're still winning the series against the Avs, who are full strength 2-1. So there is that. But after my victory lap is over, what is there a series that you're looking at that intrigues you more than others? The Blues dominant win at home against the Jets. I like to watch the Stars and Avs. I think those are two really good teams. Even Montreal got a win the other night. Is there a series that you watch when you're not watching the Wild?
Patrick?
Besides all of them.
I picked the Blues to win. I still think they are going to win that series. I think I think they're going to win they're going to win it because of the coaching battle. I just think Jim Montgomery is an elite coach, and he look at how he got his team prepared for Game 3. They could have won either one of Game 1 or Game 2, and they lost by a goal. And they throttled them the other night. So I'm still watching that Blues series awfully close.
I'll tell you the one that is becoming more and more interesting is the Capitals and the Canadiens.
Yeah, they're feisty.
They're very feisty. And that at some point, I mean, if it hasn't already bubbled over, it's getting close to that. I mean, Tom Wilson is the premier instigator in the National Hockey League, and he's the one that draws the ire of anyone that he goes up against, and it feels like he's under the skin of the Montreal Canadiens. I still predict the Caps are going to win that series, but I think it's going to get more and more intriguing as it goes along.
The Caps were probably the most talked about team in the NHL before the season started, into the season.
For sure.
And you had to look and say, oh, Washington is on top. And so I think they've surprised a lot of people this year. And, Montreal, they were a team that wasn't expected to make the playoffs. So, and they're like, hey, everything is gravy, right?
Yep.
Everything is gravy. Every win is gravy, and they're a young team. And so, we're going to have to take a look at that goaltending situation too. Both starting goalies.
Yeah, they both went out.
Yeah. So that'll be interesting. Montreal's made it a series again.
All right. Nice work there, Brett. As always, phenomenal job on Brett Blakemore's breakaways. He's there in the St. Louis Park studios. Patrick and I are down at Xcel Energy Center in the Bob Kurtz Radio Center, getting ready for game number 4 while taking on the Golden Knights. Not only do we have Beyond the Pond until noon, extended pregame starts at 2 o'clock. We'll hear from Joe and Tom before we drop the puck on this one. Wild fan line following the Game 4 festivities. Hopefully a victory here in St. Paul as the Wild look for their first ever 3-1 series lead in franchise history. That said, keep those texts coming, 64686, and use that talkback feature. We'll get to some of those on the other side of break as we check in with Jesse Granger from The Athletic and theathletic.com next on Beyond the Pond. You got a talk back?
Great show as always. As a hockey fan, it's what a beautiful time to be alive.
You got a talk back?
A few hours, the Wild have a
Yeah, I'm playing it. You're echoing back to me now.
You got to talk. There we go. Sorry. Oops.
Shed Stone line, and hopefully Eck and Brodin and Faber and Spurgey and the rest of the Wild players can continue to contain that line. And if they do, I think it's going to be a good night tonight.
Hot. Good stuff. Keep those talkbacks coming. How are you feeling about game number 4? I'll go to this text real quick, Patrick. 64686 from Maury Amsterdam guy. Hard to believe I'm typing these words, but Senior Blakemore is 100% correct. This is the most important game in Guerin's tenure. Micheletti being particularly disagreeable this morning.
Checks in the mail.
Maury Amsterdam guy on Senior Blakemore's side in this argument.
Well, I just think that, this series is going to be long. And to make this the gold medal winning game for Bill Guerin, I think it's laughable for him because he knows he's been through it. He's won Stanley Cups. And so I'm taking that same approach when you're playing a game. They don't win the series if they win the game today.
Yeah, that's true.
They don't.
That's true.
Is it helpful? 100%. But you don't lose the series if you lose the game today. So, you just got to keep on keeping on the way I'm looking at it.
That's the opinion of Pat Micheletti. Kevin Falness with you as well. Welcome to Beyond the Pond on a Saturday morning here on KFAN. Now let's check in with the other side of the coin. Jesse Granger is a guy that covers the Vegas Golden Knights for The Athletic and theathletic.com. We know that publication very well from the work of one Michael Russo, Jesse, and we know that you were doing a great job for that publication as well. Good morning and welcome to Beyond the Pond.
Yeah, thanks. Morning, guys. Thanks for having me.
You bet. Let's start right here. Right now, we were talking about going into the series. Everyone was talking about how Vegas was the deeper team. They had the bigger star talent, and they had the better goaltending. Through 3 games, I think it's safe to say the Wild have checked all those boxes, not Vegas.
Yeah, for sure. I think if there's one thing that the Golden Knights that has gone well for the Golden Knights, I do think that their depth lines have played pretty well. To me, the biggest difference is just how big the gap is between Minnesota's stars, and obviously that top line is on fire. They're dominating every time they're on the ice. And Vegas's stars, they haven't shown up yet. So yes, I agree. Minnesota's depth has I think done better than maybe Golden Knights fans expected against the Golden Knights, but I think that depth hasn't really been the problem. Like Brett Howden scored 2 goals in game 1. That fourth line has been pretty good for Vegas. The Hurdle line has been very good. It's really been, the issue really has been at the top of the lineup where Eichel, Stone, and Barbashev are still pointless, and Kaprizov and Boldy are just going bananas.
Yeah, to me, Jesse, in analyzing these 3 games, you look at territorial advantage, Vegas. You look at Minnesota and their ability to, when they get the chances, they execute. And to me, it's really come down to that. And again, as you mentioned, I never thought we would see through 3 games Jack Eichel and Mark Stone have 0 points. And, so my question to you is what is the feeling going on in that locker room as they enter game 4 today?
Yeah, it's interesting because the players, after the last 2 losses, the Golden Knights players have been pretty positive.
Yeah.
And they've kind of leaned on the fact that, like you said, they have owned the possession battle and they have got the majority of the shots and the majority of the chances. But the way I view it is that was a team that was sitting back protecting a lead in the Wild when they went up 4-0 in game 2, and then when they got that lead in game 3. To me, that was a team sitting back defensively, not pushing for offense, not sending the defensemen up in rushes to sit back and try to hold on to that lead. So when I look at the possession numbers, I think they're a little phony. I don't think that the Golden Knights are controlling the possession in to the same extent that the numbers show, just because I think minutes score is so important, time and score in a hockey game, and teams are not going to push for offense when they're up by 2 or 3 goals. I'm
going to push. I'm going to push back just a hair on that because, man, once Vegas gets their forecheck going, they're such a heavy team, and they methodically wear you down in the offensive zone. I get it. It certainly looks to us like, oh, Minnesota's sitting back, but I don't know if Minnesota had that opportunity because of the effectiveness of the forecheck and, the Vegas is playing in the offensive zone. There's arguments both ways, right? You maybe want to get going and you can't, or we are sitting back a little bit, but regardless, Minnesota has defended so well, and I'm kind of surprised, Jesse, that Vegas, with their size and skill, their inability, to get to the middle of the ice in the offensive zone.
Yeah, and so that's been a problem for the Golden Knights basically as long as they've existed, and problem being relative. This is a good team. They've done a lot of winning. But if there is a weakness on this team, it's scoring with sustained zone time. When all 10 players are in the offensive zone, can you get to the middle of the ice and can you get in the goalie's eyes and can you create those type of goals? Because the Golden Knights are incredibly reliant on transition offense. To me, they're the best transition team in hockey when they're going well, because they turn the other team over quite a bit, and then they use that and they score before the defense gets set up. And I think, to me, that's the difference in the series. Is you look at the Wild Stars, they've got all these points. Well, most of those goals are coming in transition, and they're coming very close to turnovers by the Golden Knights. And to me, that's the difference. Is Minnesota's defense has not turned the puck over, breaking it out. They've made the Golden Knights earn every inch of ice that they've got to get. And like you said, the Golden Knights are leaning on them, but they have to do that. It's the only way. It just seems like the offense is so hard to come by, whereas I think Vegas's defense, as good as they are, they have turned the puck over way too many times, especially over these last 2 games. And I think that you're giving Kaprizov and Boldy easy opportunities with open ice because of the way you've turned the puck over. So to me, you give these guys open ice, they're going to, now all of a sudden they're feeling confident. Now they're going to start making plays even when they don't have ice because they're feeling good about themselves. They've had the puck on their stick. To me, Eichel and Stone, they aren't getting that open ice. They're having to work super hard for every chance they get. They don't have the confidence with the puck, and that's the difference in the series so far.
Talking to Jesse Granger of The Athletic and theathletic.com, covers the Vegas Golden Knights for that publication. Wild have an opportunity to take their first 3-1 series lead in franchise history if they can somehow get past the Golden Knights here in Game 4. One of the talking points in this series also has been the goaltending. Jesse, we were just talking about how well Philip Gustafson has played for Minnesota. I haven't heard official word. I guess I fully assume Adin Hill would be back between the pipes for Game 4, despite being yanked after 40 minutes in Game 3. What have you seen from Hill, and has he been susceptible in this series? Has it been the guys in front of him? What are you seeing from your goaltending lens?
Yeah, I think Hill hasn't been great, but I also don't think he's been the problem. I think that you look back at all these goals that they've given up, and they've all been, it's not like he's given up softies. I would argue that the softest goal in the series was the one Gustafson let up on Pietrangelo.
Right. Yeah, you're right.
The sidewall. Adin Hill hasn't really had any of those where you're standing around wondering, like, how the heck did that go in? A lot of them are right around the net, either a bang play or the one that went off Kaprizov and into the net at the buzzer the other night. And then the other ones are just one-on-one plays with a player, whether it's a breakaway or whether it's just a player walking in on the goalie one-on-one. And all of those plays, it's hard to fault Hill, but it's also, at the same time, it's like, well, yeah, but Gustafson's giving them a couple of those saves on the other end. While I wouldn't place those goals, I wouldn't place the blame at Adin Hill's feet. It is a case of you've got to make a few of those. You don't need to make all of them, and these are tough saves to make, but you've got to make a few of them in order for us to win, because that's playoff hockey. The team that gets those saves wins. And so far, to me, Gustafson has made those saves. Adin Hill hasn't. Aiden Hill's been very good in the playoffs. I mean, it's a very small sample size. He's only had 2 playoff runs with the Golden Knights, but he has been excellent in both of them up until this year. So I still have faith that he will get it going and will make some saves. And if you think back to game 2, he made 2 incredible saves at the beginning of that game. That, to me, those felt like the types of saves that will turn a game on its head. And now the Golden Knights will get going and then they'll win, and we'll look back at those saves and you'll say those were that was the turning point in the game. The problem is they didn't get going. Minnesota just kept coming, and they scored 4 goals before the Golden Knights figured their game out. So I think Aiden Hill's been fine. I think they do need a few more saves out of him. But he got yanked the other night, and that kind of turns the narrative into, is goaltending the problem? Yeah. I really don't think it has been the problem.
Do you think him being yanked the other night was kind of a message to the team, or just trying to get his team going? Because Minnesota scores late, it's 4-1. And Bruce was just trying to maybe, light a fire under his guys and make that change.
Yeah, I think so. I will say that Bruce Cassidy made some comments after the game that were a little confusing to me. He said something along the lines of, Aiden's still ahead of Schmid, but we think we can win with both. Yeah. And that is a very confusing thing for a coach to say, for me, considering one of the goalies, Aiden Hill, he won you a cup.
Yeah.
He has been your starter all year. You just gave him a 6-year contract worth $37 million. And Akira Schmid is a talented goalie, but he's a young goalie who doesn't have a ton of experience. He played basically the entire season in the AHL, where he really struggled. It was his first season in this organization. He played for the Henderson Silver Knights, and he ranked 48th out of 52 goalies in save percentage in the AHL this year. Now, he was playing behind a bad team. It's not a good team down there. But he was outplayed by a much younger goalie that was his goalie partner in the AHL. So this isn't a goalie that you should have a ton of confidence in, you'd think. So the fact that he's saying we think we can win with both of these guys, kind of putting them on equal footing, is a little strange to me. I still expect Hill to be the starter moving forward, at least for this upcoming game. But yeah, I was a little thrown off by that comment.
How about Bruce Cassidy? You touched on him a little bit, his comments in the post game. What has it been like to watch him? 3rd season there with Vegas. Of course, we know his time there in Boston as well. What have you seen from him as the tactician behind the bench for the Vegas Golden Knights?
Yeah, I mean, he's been great for Vegas for all 3 years that he's been here. He's one of the more strategic, I think, tactical coaches in the league, and he is great at adjustments in series typically. So if there's a coach that's going to figure this out for Vegas and try to get them some open ice in the middle, in the neutral zone, and try to get them some transition chances, I don't know if it's going to be possible. If Minnesota's defensemen are going to take care of the puck the way they have and play as safe as they have, they really are staying above the puck at all times. It's impressive to watch. If they keep doing that, it's going to be really tough on Vegas. But if there's a coach that can find the adjustments needed to get his guys going, I think Cassidy's the guy.
All right, you're Bruce Cassidy. What does Vegas have to do today to get a win here this afternoon?
I think they have to chase chip pucks deep, and I think that most of their offensive chances, especially at the end of Game 3, were directly off of Ivan Barbashev on forecheck. I loved how physical he got. He still wasn't able to make many plays with the puck on his stick, but he really got to his identity of throwing the puck in the corners and then going and punishing guys. I think that's the answer. I think Vegas trying to force these transition opportunities is what is giving chances the other way, the counterattacks when they turn the puck over. So I just think, to me, they really need to put their work boots on, throw the puck deep, and try to win it back that way rather than forcing these hope passes through the neutral zone.
Jesse, definitely appreciate your time. Got to ask you, being a coworker of Michael Russo, what's that like? Put that into words if you can.
Do you try to stay away from him, or what?
The worst thing about Michael Russo is the worst thing about Michael Russo is being near a hockey rink or a practice rink and trying to talk to Michael, because everyone, wherever you're at, it doesn't matter. I remember he covered the Cup run with me a couple years. It didn't matter what city we were in, what arena we were in. Everybody there knows that guy and wants to have a conversation with him. As a reporter, the dude has nailed it. I mean, that is every reporter's dream, is everybody knows you, and that's Russo. You can't go anywhere with that guy without running into 10
Have you met him, Kevin?
Michael Russo. I've heard the name. I've heard I've heard about the legend.
He's listening right now.
Oh,
so
100%. And if not, people will tell him. So I'm glad you said some relatively nice things about him. I told you I was going to set you up for a shot, Jesse, and I think you did pretty well. So thanks for your time. Good luck here the rest of the series,
Jesse.
and I'm sure we'll connect again.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Jesse Granger of The Athletic and theathletic.com getting ready for Game 4. It's coming up here in St. Paul. Puck will drop at 3:10 in the Central Time Zone. That, again, is a luxury that we haven't had through the first 3 games. Every game, it feels like, has ended around 2 a.m. Today, the sun will be out when the puck finally, when we get the final horn in this one.
And
assuming we don't go triple
And
overtime.
I just read it, from our good friend Michael Russo. Unless the Leafs sweep, it'll look like a 10 o'clock start again on Tuesday.
Would not shock me at all.
Yeah.
I mean, I just think, I know it's not easy.
We have to be cheering for the Leafs, right?
Well, that's hard to do as well. What do you think about what he said and how the Golden Knights? I think through 3 games they've played okay. I'd have to assume we're going to see the best version of the Vegas Golden Knights tonight and this afternoon in St. Paul.
Well, I think Mark Stone and elite players like him and Eichel, they've got to be a little bit frustrated.
Frustrated is the word that came to my mind. For sure.
That they don't have a point in 3 games.
Yep.
And they're all world. So that in itself tells you Minnesota's defending pretty damn well, Kevin, in this series against those 2 guys and shutting that line down. And they're going to have to do it again today. We know that. So, but yeah, I listen, this is a big game for Vegas to try to get one on the road.
For good reason. We talk a lot about the wingers on that top line. Boldy and Kaprizov have been electric, but how important, and it shows every time he's on the ice, and especially in big moments, how big has Jules Eriksson been, being the center point there and helping those guys get the puck and setting them up, but what he does defensively. And then also add to that the return of Jonas Brodin. Everybody just feels like they're playing at the top of their game, especially on the blue line, and then you talk about the guys on that top line.
Well, I mean, you can't say enough about Eck. You don't have to look at, I know a lot of people determine a player's value or their play, gauge their play on how many goals and assists they have. And you cannot do that with Eriksson Ek because he does so much. He wins those draws. He's a guy that, I got to play against him again. You don't like to do that.
No.
And it's irritating for the opposing player to play against a guy like Eck. And then, he has the innate ability to know what he has on his wingers, right? With Boldy and who's 90? Yeah, 97.
Kaprizov, a birthday boy.
Right. And so, the line's been as good as any in the National Hockey League in the playoffs thus far.
Conversely, we haven't talked about Marco Rossi at this point. In theory, he gets demoted in the lineup, but a lot of that is because of the play of Ryan Hartman, who's forced John Hines' hand to give him more ice time, right?
Listen, sure, if you want to talk about Marco Rossi, we can talk about Marco Rossi. He made the change, so be it. Hartman's playing great. Rossi gets one the other night there. I thought the 4th line did a really good job the other night. I thought Brazeau was good. And, I know everybody in town hates him because he's 6'5" and they expect him to skate like Kaprizov. Well, he's not gonna, but he was effective. He played the body well. He takes up a lot of space when they, did he get an assist on the Rossi goal?
He sure did. He's the guy that stopped the rim. Hill tried to clear it out of the zone. His 8-foot frame got in front of that puck, got it to Trennian below the goal line, to Rossi.
It's not going to be a pretty look when you see him, but you have to watch him and say, okay, why? How can he be effective? Right? He doesn't have horrible hands. I can tell you that. And he made plays in the minutes that he's playing. He's been just fine. So I know I'm going to get pushed back because everyone's called for his head, right? So be it.
We'll get into more wild discussion with Kevin Gorg.
But good for Marco.
Yeah.
Listen, where did he get the puck? In open space. And that open space was created by his wingers.
Yep.
And so that was that was good for him. And he didn't play as many minutes, and maybe that's the answer for him, to get him out there in times that are, that you can use him properly. And so it worked out well. Good for him. He got the goal. He feels good about himself, and it's only going to help the team.
And that said, how good has Ryan Hartman been? 3 points in 3 games. He's just been fantastic. He might be the reason why that game changed in game 2. His forecheck, after the Golden Knights were coming after the Wild in game 2, for the first 5 minutes, Wild didn't have a shot on goal. First shot goes to Ryan Hartman. That chipped away at the iceberg, and then the Avalanche started for Minnesota.
Well, you know what? How can I describe his play? He's getting dirty. He's going, and he doesn't care. If there's a tree in front of him, he'll try to knock it down.
Yeah.
And that's the attitude that he's taken in this series.
And he's playing disciplined.
Yeah.
And he's had every reason to fly off the handle, and he hasn't yet.
Right.
Getting cross-checked in the face, what would that do to a young Pat Micheletti?
Yeah. Well, at times, right. But he's been great. And so hopefully that will continue this afternoon.
Without a doubt. Like I said, we'll talk to Kevin Gorg coming up next from FanDuel Sports Network, get his thoughts, because I don't hear him. I don't know what exactly they say on the TV. I'm sure it's fantastic, and maybe he can give us some of his insight here today on the radio on Beyond the Pond next. Keep those talkbacks coming. Keep them coming. We're texting at 64686. I fell into a couple of tickets, and the only thing is you got to be able to get down to St. Paul. If you win them, it'll be the last minute. I won't be able to tell you until 12 o'clock that you won, but you'll have a couple hours to get down here and see the Wild take on the Golden Knights in Game 4. If Game 3 was any indication, it's going to be a party in St. Paul. Get in your seats early. The pregame festivities are awesome, so you want to be there to take it in with your own eyes. It's one thing to do it on TV or have us describe it on radio. Get inside the building and be loud. Some of the texts we're getting at 64686. Again, we're looking for a counter to Howling with the Homies. I got Partying with the Wild Puckers. No, I like that one. Whistling with the Wild, Wild in the Wilderness, Waxing on the Wild. No, I like the alliteration that we're trying to work with here, but keep those creative ideas coming. We'll get to those as we go through the next hour of Beyond the Pond.
This is Wild head coach John Hines, and you're listening to Beyond the Pond with Falness.
coming out party. He gets 1 goal, 2 assists, Wild win 4-1, and we're going to take this in Vegas on Tuesday night. And we're moving on to the second round. He gets 1 goal, 2 assists, Wild win.
Hot. Keep those talkbacks coming. I think that's just pretty much what we just said. Jules Eriksson, he might not be doing it on the score sheet.
Let's get him on the power play.
But for sure, well,
I mean, let's get a couple power plays, I should say.
For everything that he does for this team, without a doubt, and for everything that he does for this team, it doesn't need to show up on the score sheet. It doesn't need to be, as long as he's a plus. If he's not a minus, then he's obviously doing his job. He's shutting down the opposition. And you look at their big stars, a lot of those zeros next to guys like Eichel and Stone are because of the play of Jules Eriksson. Let's go to the phone lines. Our buddy Kevin Gorg of FanDuel Sports Network, nice enough to join us here on a Saturday morning as we get ready for Game 4 of the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I asked him to come in studio.
And he said no?
Well, no, he's busy. But I think part of it was, I don't know if he wanted to see you.
Gorgie, tell me that's not it. You're not in studio because of
that
me?
had nothing to do with it.
And
no, come on now. I love Falness.
KG, I put a curtain, I'm looking at Kevin's behind the glass, so.
In the Bob Kurtz Radio Center. Yeah. It's a thing of beauty, Gorgie. How are you this fine morning? Good. Thanks for coming on Beyond the Pond. I know you're geared up. You're geared up, win, lose, or tie all season long, even if it's the preseason. But I'm guessing your intensity is another level here as we make our way through the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm amped up, and I get excited, and then I have anxiety. I had to watch a bulk of the third period from the stick room in the tunnel behind the Wild bench with LaPanta and Carter in my ear. This is playoff season is so much fun, you guys. And for all of us that cover the team, you work all year watching these guys grind away, and you just hope you get a chance to be involved in the playoffs. And it's been awesome. Like, the games in Vegas were fantastic. The Wild are playing great. We kind of got a little hint at the end of the year that Ek and Kaprizov were trending towards good health. And now it looks like they're both fully healthy. And this is a completely different team when that's the case.
Kevin, going into the series, really tough to handicap what type of team Minnesota was going to be. We saw the really, really good part at the beginning of the year, and then all the injuries hit, and, they kept it together, but it wasn't their team, and now it's their team. So you can answer that question, and then secondly, what are you seeing in the first 3 games of the series that has caught your attention?
Well, I think this team, because they had to work so hard to get in, was playoff ready from the drop of the puck. And I think the Wild, if you look at the analytics, it was a coin flip game in game 1. And for all intents and purposes, it was a 1-goal finish, the empty net goal at the buzzer, 4-2, whatever. But the Wild have been the better team the last 2 times out. And I think it's the physical play, Mick. I wondered if the grind of the season to get in would catch up with this team, and clearly it has not. I think the break in between the regular season and the playoffs did them some good, and I do believe they get energy from seeing guys like Ek and Kaprizov. The physical play, and John Hines' teams played great without the puck. It's the trademark of what he's brought in. We saw it a year ago. Even though they missed the playoffs, that was really a part of the culture he created, and it's still here now. They are a very strong team without the puck, and I think they've really frustrated some of the high-end players for the Vegas Golden Knights because there just hasn't been that open ice in the neutral zone. This is a team in Vegas that likes to play off the rush, that likes to play transition hockey, and between the forwards tracking back and the D working on their gaps, and the top 4 for Minnesota have been brilliant. I think they have really frustrated this hockey team.
And I know one of your favorite topics is goaltending, and a guy that I think is frustrating the Golden Knights is Philip Gustafson. We were talking with Jesse Granger, and I agree. The Pietrangelo goal was a softie, but there haven't been a lot of softies from Philip Gustafson. He has been – I think he's been very good all season long, but probably playing his best hockey here in this series through 3 games.
Let me put it this way, Kevin. If they don't have Gustafson this year, they don't make the playoffs. It's that simple. And they got in with a net goal with 21 seconds left just to get in. But without Gustafson, they're not here right now. And I think we learned a couple nights ago that Gustafson's gone from being a good goalie with great potential to now being an elite goalie, a great goalie in the National Hockey League, because you've seen the top end talent in this league give up a bad goal and they don't flinch. It doesn't affect the rest of the hockey game. the goalies that are up and coming let a goal like that go in, and they might let in 5 or 6 that night. And it was a bad goal. And I loved his answer after the game. There's nothing I can do about it. I just have to move forward. He's a much more mature version of himself. And I do believe this. And anyone that's around the team, I think, would concur. Marc-Andre Fleury has had such an impact on this kid. And not just the work ethic at practice, but he's in his ear day in and day out. TV timeouts. Watch Gustafsson skate to the corner of the bench where Flower is. Those conversations are gold. And I think this kid mentally and physically has evolved. And I think the work he has put in is legit. But you cannot understate what Marc-Andre Fleury has meant to Philip Gustafsson.
KJ, I want to go back to John Hines for a second. And, you know, and really not only John Hines, but his whole staff. And why I think they are, you know, playing as well as they are playing is that, you know, his attention to detail, and he's focused on that all season long, whether this guy's in the lineup or that guy's in the lineup or they're shorthanded. They seem to try to play the same way every night, and it's just like he's pounding it into their heads. And, you know, we're seeing that, you know, the way that they're defending. You know, you talked about the defenseman's gaps, and, you know, but all of those things together, they just seem to, you know, to play the way that he wants them to play. Am I wrong?
No, I think he puts a lot of work in. He and that coaching staff, they won't get outworked. I'll promise you that, being around these guys now for nearly 2 seasons. And I think he's a calming influence. If you watch him behind the bench, he's a bit of a flatliner. And when you have a team that plays with emotion, and you start with Foligno, and you think about Hartman, and even Kirill Kaprizov and Matt Boldy, the passion and the emotion they bring to the table, there's going to be some ups and downs and some swings of momentum within games, within series. And you look at that head coach, and he is stoic back there, and he doesn't blink, and he doesn't panic. And no matter what the situation has been, and they had some dire situations with injuries this year, his message has not changed. Like, he has been unflappable in his message. No matter who's in the lineup, no matter who's hurt, this is how we're going to play the game. We're going to play north. We're going to take care of the puck, and we're going to be efficient leaving our zone. That has not changed under John Hines, and he's done a remarkable job. I get it. The guy in Washington should be favored. Dean Evison did an amazing job in Columbus, but this guy should be in the conversation for the Jack Adams Award, because remember, this was a team that for the most part was not picked to be a playoff team before the season started, when they were healthy, right, with Kaprizov, with Eck, with Brodin, with all the injuries they had. To get this team to the postseason, it's a remarkable, remarkable job by this staff.
Talking to Kevin Gorg of FanDuel Sports Network. They're on the air. I assume it's a 2:30 pregame for you guys today?
Absolutely. TV and radio, once again, living in harmony, Kev.
Without a doubt. There were a lot of folks coming down the stretch at the trade deadline, wanted to see Kaprizov, wanted to see Eriksson Ek on LTIR, go out and use that money for someone else. Had they done that, those guys would not be available at the end of the regular season. Has Bill Guerin been vindicated for not pushing that button and giving those guys that 3-4 games, whatever they got at the end of the regular season, so they could hit the postseason in stride? Whatever rust they had at the end of the game number 80, 81, 82 feels like that's been obliterated here through the first 3 games of this series.
Yeah, I never questioned it. I think a lot of people maybe blew that out of proportion, but 100% he's been vindicated, because let's remember, we've all watched Kirill Kaprizov come off the shelf. He has always needed some runway. He's needed 3, 4, 5 games to get into peak form, and you can see right now he's just about there. Joel Eriksson Ek scored that goal to save the season, so if he's not there, they're not in. You can make all kinds of arguments. The other factor is this team is proving right now, I mean, Vegas being the 3rd betting favorite in most markets before the playoffs started. Wild right now in this series for sure. They can play with just about anybody, and they didn't give away a lot of prospects to get here. So, no, I think he made the right choice. I think they quietly could see the progress off the ice. And again, they get to see a lot of things we don't. But the workouts and with the training staff, they knew exactly where Ek and Kaprizov were going to be. And so they made the decision that we might need these guys to get in. They looked at that schedule late. It was a daunting schedule. late in the regular season, especially with those road games at Vancouver and Calgary, who at the time were certainly big-time factors. So made the right choice. They've got good chemistry. I got to tell you this, all series long, it's been the same vibe around this team. And what I love about it is, in years past, you get a big win, and I felt like sometimes they got a little too high. Back to the John Hines demeanor, this team right now, very focused, one game at a time. We had a chance to talk to Freddie Gaudreau and Matt Boldy yesterday, and all they could talk about was Game 4. They didn't want to talk about Game 3. They loved the crowd and all that good stuff, but they literally are very myopic, one game at a time, and I think that's the way they played it all regular season, and I think that's the way you have to play it in the playoffs, and maybe this could be a different version of the Wild. We know all about the 2-1 leads that they blew against St. Louis and against Dallas in their two most recent playoff series outings. I feel like this is a different team.
Hey, yeah, and you kind of hit on my next question, Kevin, and we use, I think it's an overused term, but it's the cliche term, but the culture of the team, the culture in the locker room. We talk about that a lot. This team has gone through a lot. I mean, you want to talk about a roller coaster with a number of injuries and who's going to be in the lineup and, all that kind of stuff. Right. And they have just seemed to forget about the outside noise, stay together all year. And I mean, how key is that? Because we look at other teams around the league, and I'll give you one right now. New York Rangers, you look at their lineup and they don't make the playoffs. So I mean, how important is it? I mean, you're around these guys all year. Have you seen that all season long with these guys?
Yeah, Mick, it's a great question. And this is my 19th year on the beat covering this team, traveling with the club. It's the most selfless group I've ever been around. Hockey players are always great. It's always a really good group of guys. That's never changed. But this group, a little more selfless than most. And I think it starts with their captain, Jared Spurgeon, and the way he carries himself. None of these guys give a rip about their personal statistics. They want to perform. They want to help the team win. They want to go out there and play at a high level. But be around them, and in the conversations where we're not on camera, these guys truly do care about the guy next to them and the group more than they care about themselves. And that is unique because, remember, anybody on an NHL roster had been a superstar somewhere getting here. They've been catered to and treated as the big dog all their lives. And you look at, and I'll give you a fine example of Marco Rossi right now. Does he want to be a fourth-line center right now? Absolutely not. Is he disappointed in the decision that Hines and that coaching staff have made? 100%. He's a competitor. He's a talented player. But you know what? He's going to go out there and he's going to do the best he can for the guys around him. And right now, with Trenyan and Brazeau, that is the type of line that can be a difference maker in a series that on paper likely goes 6 or 7. And there's razor thin differences between these teams. And you look at a fourth line that's banging bodies and making plays, getting those matchups. I'm telling you, this is what the group is. They're very team orientated. They're very selfless. And in my nearly 2 decades, I haven't seen a team better at having that care for each other. And I think that's a big part of why they're here.
Let me ask you about another young guy in Zeev Buium. What have you seen from him? I was talking with Patrick through 3 games of his NHL career. They happened to land in the Stanley Cup playoffs. He now has his first NHL point. It feels like he's progressing. Every time he steps on the ice, it feels like he gets more and more confident, and you're seeing that. What are you watching when you watch number 8 there on that blue line?
Well, I'm fascinated with the kid's talent, and you watch him at practice, ice level, and you see some of the things he can do with the puck. And having watched him play at DU, he's a remarkably gifted kid. He was nervous in game 1, and it showed. And he wasn't bad, but for his level of play, I'm sure he walked away from that game saying, holy cow, this is a different level. But to your point, Kevin, period by period, shift by shift, he's looked more and more comfortable. And John Hines talked about it yesterday. The puck battles that he had in game 3, He was winning his defensive position without the puck, and then his savvy on the power play. What gets lost in the shuffle on that Kaprizov goal when he circled the wagons, Eck is certainly taking care of the vision of Aiden Hill. But remember, Buium is up top at the high slot, and when Kaprizov comes, he's got to get to a dangerous spot. So they respect. And think of Ovechkin's office. That's where he went. So now the goaltender's got to be cognizant of where Buium is. The coverage on the PK has to be cognizant, and that allows Kaprizov to set up that screen with Eck and give that quick flick of the wrist into the net. If Boyum doesn't go to the right spot there, that play never happens. And that's some of the things you can't coach and you can't teach. This kid's got offensive skills and he can make plays. And so I'm super excited to see where this is going because he looks like a player that will continue to grow as the series and these playoff games rattle off. And we know the kind of talent the kid has. At 19 years old, I can't believe he just looks like a baby, right? I mean, it's amazing.
19 is
and
ridiculous.
he's going to get scrutinized every shift by everybody, and you just got to let him play. In my opinion, and I think listen, I'm glad he's on this team. I'm glad he's in the lineup.
K-Train, let me ask you.
I don't like 5 forwards on the power play. So having the defenseman back there that can quarterback things with his skill, I'm all for it.
All right, so give us a preview of what you expect today. I think the Wild have been the better of the two teams throughout the course of these first 3 games. They've played great. They've got their offensive spark when they needed it. They've played great defensively. But like I was saying to Patrick, I'd have to expect that you're going to see the best version of the Vegas Golden Knights here in Game 4 as they try to do to the Wild what the Wild did to Vegas there at T-Mobile Arena.
Yeah, I was listening to the show earlier, and I agree with Micheletti that whoever wins today isn't a lock to win the series. I do think whoever wins the game today has the edge. That's all it is. And with Vegas up against it and having been beat 5-2 in back-to-back games, knowing that 2 years ago a bulk of these guys won a Stanley Cup, you know what you're in for today. They're going to be a disciplined team. They're going to be an angry team. At some point, their top line is going to make plays. Bottom line, Jack Eichel had nearly 100 points this year. He's going to make plays at some point. You have to be ready for that and ready to counter that. The biggest question mark I have for Vegas is at goaltender. And I listened
I'm with you.
To Bruce Cassidy, and I'm not absolutely certain that he's coming back with Aiden Hill. I think that's the safe bet right now.
Yeah.
But, Speed played well down the stretch. He's played playoff hockey in New Jersey. I hope it's Aiden Hill for a lot of reasons. Yeah. I think it likely is. I don't think it's a slam dunk, especially when he said we trust both guys.
Yeah.
But no, I expect the crowd to be a big influence on things. Every player I talked to mentioned that, not just during the game, guys, but during warmups and then that lead up before they hit the ice. They line up in the tunnel and everybody is on their feet chanting, "Let's go Wild." That doesn't happen. I've never seen that. There was a real energy and juice provided by that crowd. I do worry a little bit with the 3:00 start. 8:00 with the bars in St. Paul and the young people coming in full of juice. 3:00, let's see if the crowd can make the same imprint. I think they will. It's a great opportunity for Minnesota to take, I think, complete control of the series, but I think it's going to be Vegas's absolute A game today. I wouldn't be surprised if it was a 1-goal game. I wouldn't be shocked if we had overtime.
Gorgie, awesome stuff as always. Thanks for putting us a part of your day as you make your way down to Xcel Energy Center. Have some fun this afternoon with LaPanta and the crew, and we'll be watching. We won't be listening, but we'll be watching.
Love you guys. Love the show. Enjoy.
Right. Oh, see you later. Thank you.
There he goes, Kevin Gorg of FanDuel Sports Network. Yes, they'll have television coverage available.
What do you say to him all the time?
#MuteTV. I also like to talk about his podcast, Broken Sticks, but
have you been on there yet?
I have. It's called Wooden Sticks. I have. So have you.
I've been on twice.
Helvy's been on there. Alexis has been. Everyone's got a podcast. God bless everyone and their podcast.
Do you have one?
No, I don't have a podcast. I don't have time for a podcast. I got 3 kids at home. I'm very busy, Patrick. I don't have time for a podcast. His podcast is called Wooden Sticks, but every time I see him, I ask him, "How's Broken Sticks going?" And he doesn't like that either. And then I say #MuteTV. I walk in one direction, he curses me under his breath in the other direction, and we're off and running.
You got to be nicer to KG.
I'm nice to everybody.
He's a good man.
I get a bad rap. I'm the one that I'm everyone's favorite punching bag. I'm the one that takes the heat.
I never give you any grief.
Patrick Allen Micheletti. I have no idea what your middle name is,
John,
but let's be honest.
Well, there you did, right there.
That is the voice of Patrick John Micheletti. We're back with more Beyond the Pond after this. Let's get to some of those talkbacks. We're giving away a pair of tickets today. Gorgie's worried about the fact that it's a 3:00 start. I'm not worried about that. There's going to be 19,000 people in here. You'll get your bar time. You'll have your young
It'll
kids,
be loud.
whatever he's talking about. There's no question about it. And you can be a part of the festivities. All you got to do is leave us a talk back on that free iHeartRadio app. What do you want to hear? Howling with the Homies. What's the Wild version of that? Plus how you feeling going into game number 4. We'll get to some of those next on Beyond the Pond.
This is Kevin Gorg, and I'll give you hundreds of reasons to listen to Micheletti.
Whoa.
Hundreds. It's Beyond the Pond on the Fan.
Support for this program.
ContinentalDiamond.com.
It's Game 4 tomorrow at 2:30 when the Timberwolves host the Lakers. Hear the Howl live on the audio home of the Wolves, iHeartRadio, and FM 100.3 KFAN, The Fan. Audio home of the Wolves.
Falness. Hey, Pat. Hey, Brett. It's going to be a great day. We're going to put the Knights to sleep. And if we play like we did in Game 3, there's no stopping us. We're going to make a deep run this year. This is our year. We're going to keep Beyond the Pond going. Keep you guys in business over there. Forget the golf. Let's go Wild. Woo!
Hey, guys, this is Mike in Minneapolis. Let's go with the Whistle of the Wild as the wild light the lamp. And let's hear that lovely, lovely longhorn sound. Thanks, boys. You're the best.
How about if we call it Will of the Wild?
Hot. Blue line banter, flowing with the fans, Selly with Carilli. Here's one from Max in River Falls, hockey with the honkies. You never know. Maybe they'll pick up. Howling with the homies, hockey with the honkies.
What am I? I'm waiting anxiously to see who you pick.
Yeah, well, we'll see. It's probably going to fall on the shoulders of one Brett Blakemore back in the KFAN studios.
Fear the fork.
As he fears the fork, indeed. I'm excited for this one. I mean, there's something about playoff hockey, and we didn't get a chance to experience it last year, Patrick. And now here we are, 3 games in. Yep. First 2 games at T-Mobile Arena was one thing, and they have an awesome atmosphere there in that building. Vegas Golden Knights and their home ice. But getting it back at Xcel Energy Center and being able to feel that energy, even from the Al Shaver press box. I mean, you're up in the rafters there. You don't get a full feel. Like if you're Brett Blakemore amongst the rubes there in the lower bowl or even in that 200 second, you don't get a chance to feel the atmosphere and the energy from the fan base that you do. And man, I tell you what, it was so much fun to watch this team explode on home ice and the fans pay them off big time with the noise.
Yeah, hopefully they can keep that momentum because they have the momentum. And these series, being 7 games, playing the same team for that number of games, you've got to be able to keep that momentum. Momentum is so big, and if you lose it, you got to find a way to turn it back in your favor. And so that's the whole key to these series is feeling good. And Minnesota feels good about themselves now. Up 2-1, they win the last 2, and they're kind of on that roll. And they certainly don't want to give that up. Vegas, on the other hand, they're desperate. They don't want to go down 3-1, and they want to get one here, so they take advantage of that potentially having that 7th game at home. So, big game for Minnesota to keep it going. And, I think they'll go in with the right mindset, which you have to in this game today.
From the 612 area code, Patrick, do you believe right-handed shooters are superior? Maybe just his misinterpretation.
They're better goal scorers. Wait, 97 is pretty good. Yeah. So
who's smarter, winger or a defenseman?
Well, wingers, of course, right?
You know what Tom Reed would answer? And we'll ask him in the extended pregame.
Yeah, we will.
Around 2:30. But you're going to say, will you say that in front of Tom Reed?
Did Tom score on this penalty shot?
He loves to talk about it.
I know.
We'll have him break it down. He scored on Ken Dryden, got him 5-hole.
Yeah.
He said he fanned on it. It happened to slip past him. But still, Ken Dryden will never hear the end of it.
It doesn't have to be Picasso.
That's
right?
for sure.
As long as it crosses that red line.
From the 651 area code, watch the game on the laptop in Game 3. Can't imagine how frenzied the X will be in Game 4 today. So exciting. Lots of text coming in at 64686. Skating for Stanley from Rob in St. Paul Park. Falness down the rabbit hole. Don't like that one. Hockey with the Honkies is leading the contenders, but you got to send it in via the free iHeartRadio app and use that talkback. You got 30 seconds to give us your best thoughts, not only about how we would counter howling with the homies, but also what you think about this series thus far and what you're thinking about going into game number 4. We got to squeeze in one last break, and then when we continue, we're going to the NHL Network. EJ Raddick is next on Beyond the Pond.
Looking to take command of the series, the Wild host the Knights in Game 4. Today at 3 on the audio home of the Wild, KFAN. It's Game 4 of the playoffs. Wolves-Lakers, April 27th. Live on the Minnesota Timberwolves channel on iHeartRadio and FM 100.3 KFAN The Fan. Powered locally on The Fan by TimberTech.
Upgrade your outdoors this spring with TimberTech decks. Get the natural look of wood without the upkeep. Durable, beautiful, and built to last. TimberTech. Everything wood should be. Ask your contractor today for TimberTech.
Preset for even quicker access. 24/7 news on iHeartRadio.
Hey, it's Meat Sauce, and my friends and I at Elm Creek Brewing are excited to share the newest minerally enhanced THC drink on the
Hot.
Buck 43 to go. Charging back in Stone. Got it to Carlson. Someone in front. Kicks in. Gustafsson with his left pad. And Bogosian to the rebound. Charges it all the way down. Foligno's going to win the foot race. Empty net. He scores! Marcus Foligno! And that should do it in Game 3 as the Wild with a short-handed empty netter to make it 5-2 Minnesota.
Icing on the cake in game number 3. Wild in front of 19,058. Thumped the Vegas Golden Knights. 5-2 was the final in that one. Wild lead the best of 7 series. 2-1. A huge game 4 coming up from St. Paul in just a little bit. Extended pregame starts at 2 o'clock. Puck drops at 3:10 in the Central Time Zone. We'll be here watching from his spot there at the NHL Network. I'm sure will be EJ Raddick joining us now on Beyond the Pond. EJ, that's Pat Micheletti. I'm Kevin Falness. Thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, my pleasure, guys. It's good times in Minnesota these days with 2 terrific performances back to back.
Yeah, without a doubt, and I'm sure we'll talk about the NHL, and Pat's chomping at the bit to tear India. But let's first get your thoughts on what's going on here with this playoff series. Wild, like you say, have won 2 straight. Kaprizov and Boldy have been electric. They're getting the goaltending. I don't think many people picked the Wild to be in this situation here through 3 games.
No, I mean I didn't. So I'm not. I always like to be straightforward. I mean I thought Vegas would win the series, and listen, they still may, but they've got to find an answer for Kirill Kaprizov and that top line, and they got to get better goaltending.
Yeah.
The strength of the Vegas Golden Knights really is the depth of their team and their 4-line approach and all 6D, and they rely on getting usually good goaltending from Aiden Hill. Well, he hasn't played all that well. Gustafsson has played much better in my view, and like I said, Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek and Boldy are kind of running wild, and they haven't had the answer. So until they can find that answer or Aiden Hill plays much better, the Vegas Golden Knights are headed for an early exit. We'll see how things go today. Obviously, this is a swing game, and if Vegas wins, we're back even and we're 2 out of 3. But Minnesota's been very impressive. In the last 2 games, they've jumped out to big leads, and with the good goaltending, they've been able to hold on and secure the victories.
Yeah, EJ, you look at this series, and if you look at territorial advantage, I would say, hey, Vegas has probably had a little bit more of that. They forecheck hard, they wear you down, they're big, they're heavy, but through 3 games in this series, 2 elite players, Mark Stone and Jack Eichel, do not have a point. And, for Vegas to get going, I mean, those guys got to get on the board. Wouldn't you agree?
I would 100% agree. They do have to get on the board. And, Mark Stone, is an older player now that has had a lot of injury issues, and he's still, a guy that can make a difference in a game. But he's, in my view, watching him at the Four Nations, I mean, it's more of a challenge for him right now. He was never a pretty skater. And as you get older and you get more miles on you, that becomes more of a challenge. So the Wild have done a really good job against those guys. I think, like I said, I mean, you talk about the territorial advantage, right, in the game that, Vegas has had that. But, the last 2 games, they've been so far behind early in these games. That's what happens. You guys know it, right? When teams get out front 3 and 4 goals, the other team makes a push. They're trying to get, so there is that offensive zone time that kind of accumulates, but they haven't been able to do enough with it. And as I said, Gustafsson has been really good when he's had to be, and that's been the difference. But you're right. I mean, if Eichel's a terrific 200-foot player, and I'm a big fan of Jack Eichel, but at the end of the day, he does need to provide some offense here. And then for the Vegas Golden Knights, for me watching today, they've got to get the lead.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a team that they've been behind by multiple goals. They've got to get the lead and play with the lead. If they don't do that, they're going to be in trouble.
We've had this conversation over the last couple of weeks, and since you're a national guy, we're going to try and stuff the ballot box. There's a lot of guys out there that are getting – I know, right? There's a lot of guys out there that are getting their comeuppance for what they've done behind the bench, whether it's in Washington. Dean Evison has done a fantastic job, did a great job all season long, considering everything Columbus had to go through. But I think John Hines deserves his due praise for what he was able to accomplish just to get the Wild through this 82-game grind, considering the injuries they had to go through, and then finally get into the playoffs. What have you thought about John Hines behind the bench for Minnesota? Should he be under consideration for Coach of the Year?
Well, listen, John Hines is an excellent coach. I've been a fan of John's for a long time, going back to his time at the with the U.S. program, and through as I watched his career, and he's in New Jersey, and then he went to Nashville and now Minnesota. He's a hardworking, coach. He's an excellent coach. He gets a lot out of his players. I can remember in New Jersey, Taylor Hall had his absolute best year in the NHL and was the MVP of the league under John Hines. You're right. He had a really difficult challenge this year when guys started to go down. I mean, the Minnesota Wild was one of the very best teams in the league in the first third of the season when everybody's healthy. And, it was a struggle, as you guys know. I mean, you lose your best player, then, other key performers on your team. It is not easy. So, listen, there's a lot of good coaching jobs in the year. The broadcasters vote on that. I do not vote on that. I don't vote on any of the awards anymore. But, I think there's a lot of good candidates. John should definitely get consideration just based on the challenge that he had this year. But I'm happy for him that here in the playoffs he's got everybody healthy because, at the end of the year, a lot of these guys who coach, there's a lot of good coaches around the league.
Right.
But the bottom line is, guys, you got to have the horses. You got to have the players. And if you don't have the players, you could be Scotty Bowman, you could be Toe Blake. It doesn't much matter.
Right.
He's got his players now, and John is doing a great job.
EJ, let's talk about some of the other playoff series, but before that, we see teams make deals at the trade deadline, maybe a little bit before the trade deadline. They're looking for that one player or two players or whatever the case may be to maybe get them over the hump, right? And we see two teams that are playing each other now, and this series really fascinates me is the Colorado Avalanche and the Dallas Stars. Both make some pretty big deals to fortify themselves for the playoffs, and now they're facing each other in this first round. Talk about the pressure that some of these organizations feel when they make a move, when they make a big move heading into the playoffs.
Yeah, I mean, when you're giving up assets to get pieces that may or may not be there in the future, that's, I think, when you push your chips in, right? And you take a run. So I think that, I would say of those two teams, that's more Colorado right now. Like Dallas went out and got Rantanen, and they traded a significant piece and pick to get him, but they signed him.
Yeah,
so
true. Good point.
Be in Dallas for 8 years, right?
Yeah.
So the pressure of winning this year, he's not signed. Can we keep him? He's signed. He'll be there. Colorado went out and got a couple of different players. Brock Nelson, one in particular, that's contract is expiring. Will he be in Colorado next year? We don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And they've got some other pieces like that. So that's always a factor. And it's interesting, right? We sit there on trade deadline day. I've been at the NHL Network for years now. Before that at ESPN, and we cover the trade deadline, and big names come and go. And sometimes teams that don't do anything benefit the most. And like this year, I think a great example is LA traded for Andrei Kuzmenko from the Philadelphia Flyers.
Nondescript.
No one thought that was anything. It barely made a ripple, right?
Yep.
And in fact, I can remember us having a conversation like we're disappointed at the LA Kings because they were having a good season and they needed scoring and they didn't make a bigger push. And Kuzmenko is a guy that's drifted through 3 teams this year. But as it's turned out, he's been a great fit for them. And, he had 39 goals for the Vancouver Canucks a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
And he is he has elite hands below the dots. I watched him play a lot during his time with the Canucks. Bruce Boudreau was there. I have a good relationship with Bruce, and I would be watching, to see how that team was doing. He's got elite hands below the dots. Is he a good defensive forward? Not really. Is he ever going to be? Probably not. But he's got elite hands. And so the LA Kings, give him credit. They did their homework. They probably saw him a lot when he was in Vancouver and Calgary. He's come in and he's been a really helpful player, and he's helped their power play because they have 7 goals now on 12 attempts in the first 3 games against the Oilers.
Well, as you can expect, we're paying a special attention to the teams here in the Central Division. Pat mentioned the Stars and Avalanche. How about the Blues and Jets? Jets get past the Blues in the first 2 games there in Winnipeg. They go to St. Louis, and the Blues stomp them 7-2 to cut that lead in half, and now trailing the best-of-7 series 2-1. Game 4 coming up in St. Louis. What have you thought about that series, and do you give the Blues a chance, considering how well they played down the stretch to get into the postseason?
Yeah, you got to give them a chance. I mean, they just knocked the daylights out of the Jets the other night at home, and they've won 13 straight games at home, right? So if they can continue to be this good at home, win their home games, that gives them 3 wins in the series, right? So now the question is, can they figure out a way to win in Winnipeg? And the games were tight in Winnipeg. So we'll see where it goes today. I mean, Dylan DeMello was out of the lineup for Game 3. I got to figure out his status moving forward. But, like, people say, oh, well, Dylan DeMello, he's, how important is he? Played all 82 games the last 2 years, I believe, for the Jets. And he's an important part of their team. And whenever you pull a guy out like that, somebody has to go in. It shuffles your D pairs. We'll find out if he can't play moving forward, if he is a bigger loss than we would have imagined, or if they need time to kind of settle into the new look, or maybe they just had a bad night. I mean, those things all happen. The Blues had a lot of urgency going into that game. They knew they needed to win. Listen, the Winnipeg Jets, they come in, they're like the Toronto of the West, right? They've had good teams. This year they win the President's Trophy, but they haven't done it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
So if St. Louis can win Game 4 and even that series, now the pressure starts to mount on Winnipeg to get the job done because, let's face it, we're all human beings. They know they've had a great year. They feel like they have a great team. They feel like they can win the Stanley Cup, but they haven't really had a sniff of that in a while. So, St. Louis is a tough out. We knew that coming in. And they're missing Dylan Holloway, who was a big loss for them up front. He was a 60-point guy this year.
Yep.
So we'll see what adjustments get made in Game 4. But I'll tell you, that series has been nasty. They have been beating the daylights out of each other. So we'll see if anybody survives.
One team that wasn't expected really to make the playoffs this year, they're building, they're going in the right direction, is the Montreal Canadiens, playing up against the team, the Washington Capitals, going into the season. We didn't know, how good that they were going to be. And, and Montreal comes back and, kind of thumps them last night. And so, is Montreal just playing, every win is gravy for us and, pressure free going into this first round?
Well, you would think they have a little, like they used to say, like a little house money, right? Because they weren't anticipating, there was no high expectation on them making the playoffs this year. That's the great news for them, right? And all these games now are great experiences for a young team. But I would tell you this, they've had a weird year, guys. They would win 7, they would win 5, they would win 9, they would lose 8. I mean, it was a weird season. And in a season where nobody really was able to take charge at the end in the East for that last spot, they were able to stack some wins at the right time. I think, with Marty St. Louis coaching there, they've got that top line with Suzuki and Caulfield and Slavkovsky has been one of the very best lines in the league, right there with the guys you put out there in Minnesota. I mean, that line in Minnesota has been special, but these guys are really good as well. Lane Hudson has been fun to watch on defense, and they got Caden Gooley back. He had been out. He got back in the lineup late in the season. Montendor had been good in goal, but now the challenge is goalie's hurt. They had to put in Dobish in last night. We'll see how it goes with Montendor if he can play the next game. I just think they're a dangerous team to play because they're loose and they're young and they're talented. They're fast. I mean, Washington did not play well, I think, down the stretch. But it's a battle of styles. Washington is big and strong. Montreal is small and fast. Outside of what's going on with Tom Wilson and Josh Anderson, which was unbelievable last night. I mean, that's a Friday night to remember in Montreal. First game there in a while, crazy fight. It was like going back to the 1980s.
Right.
Bench is basically empty. It was awesome.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. I mean, I think Montreal's got a puncher's chance in the series to win. Washington is still this is not outside of Ovechkin and a couple of guys that are Carlson,
right,
Eller. like they have a pretty inexperienced team in terms of the playoffs. So they'll start to feel some heat. If Montreal can win Sunday night at the Bell, and that place will be jumping again, and we got goalie problems on both teams, right?
Yeah.
You go back, it's 2 out of 3. If you're the Montreal Canadiens, I mean, you got to be feeling good about your chances.
EJ, thanks for your time. Wish we had more of it. Unfortunately,
Could
we're up
talk
against
all
the
day,
top of the
EJ.
hour. For sure. We love talking
All right,
hockey
well,
with
listen, you guys have a great day today. Good luck to the fans there, and Mike Russo says you guys aren't that bad. So I don't know what that means.
That's not
but,
what he
you know.
says, to be honest. But thanks, EJ.
Thanks, EJ.
See ya, buddy. EJ
All right.
Raddick of
All right,
NHL
see ya.
Network. Always good to hear his voice. Patrick, we're up against the top of the hour. We'll be back for Wild Fan Line after the game. We got an extended pregame starting at 2 o'clock. A couple quick ones for you. We don't know the status of Marcus Johansson. John Hines will address the media here in a little bit, and then we'll get further indication. Worst case scenario, he's not available. What do you do?
Oh boy, that's a good question. Do you go back with the younger kid in Ogren?
Yeah.
I mean, that's been floated a little bit. We're gonna have to wait and see. What John's gonna do with that lineup today. So
Kevin Gorg speculated that the Golden Knights maybe won't come back with Aiden Hill. I'd be shocked if they don't.
I'd be shocked too.
Right?
Yeah,
I mean, they have to come back with Hill.
He's won a Stanley Cup for him, and so yeah, I expect him to play.
We'll see you in a little bit. 2
Sounds
o'clock,
great.
we're back on the air. That is the voice
Great.
of Pat Micheletti. Great to hear from him. Brett Blakemore doing a great job back in St. Louis Park, and a great job to all of you. I think we're going to go with hockey with the Honkies. That's going to win it. Even though it wasn't a talk back, it was via a text. You win a pair of tickets. You're going to come on down and see the Wild face off against the Vegas Golden Knights. Extended pregame starts at 2 o'clock. Puck drops at 3:10 in the Central Time Zone. And then afterwards, we got Wild Fan Line with myself and Pat Micheletti. So hopefully you'll join us for an afternoon of hockey. But coming up, we got 2 hours of Sauce and Nordo, an NFL draft special. Buckle up for that, because that's going to be a blast. More hockey coming up at 2 o'clock. So enjoy it. And you're listening to KFAN.